Good morning and welcome back to #How to Run for Governor Fall 2022. In this session we cover Chapter 6 Article 3 and Regulation of Execution in our state.
Article 3, Week 6. Regulation of Execution. Some say rules are meant to be broken as per the first section of Article I in the Tennessee Constitution, but in all other cases an adherence to morality is expected. Some may find it difficult to follow the law, which is a certain misconception, as we refrain from harming others much more often than not. Our body is growing. Our technology is advancing. Our state is moving, but where? Well, morally in the direction the legislature positions the tax revenue. And from whom other than the governor do we expect that chain of command to follow? So, execution of legislation is usually followed, because they are either a pattern of human growth or behavior, Newton's first law, an attempt to alter that growth or movement in the interest of the state, Newton's second law, or to meet immoral activity or behavior with an equal and opposite force, Newton's third law. All executive power to encourage, direct and meet movement within the state is manifest through the governor. His moral position, or hers were we to elect her, should be proven through his or her actions where executing what the legislature votes on as law is paramount. As things go smoothly much more often than not, like the distribution of agriculture and the distribution of capital, so the agriculture distributed may be purchased, we follow law afforded. Though money for food is not really necessary since the state grows and breeds so much, the tradition we have of paying for things we don't possess stimulates the friction of taxation. Pluribus Unum, the governor stands on the side of a collective morality with only his or her seal of the state and a signature as unique as a fingerprint.
Being one out of many, the governor remains on the side of the majority who define morality for those in a particular state, taking the ethical position that what is right is also good. What is a governor but a role model for those under his or her auspices, where in following the governor one is ensuring their future growth? The position taken to be morally right and ethically good is the same position we all consider ourselves to be, when sober and clean. The state is growing and moving seemingly out of control as per Newton's first law, and the governor takes the position of the legislature to direct its growth as much as it may as per the second. The third law comes into play as opposition to one or any of the laws set by the legislature are hindered from their execution. Knowing the first law, the governor must collect portions of the agriculture and commerce of the state for purposes of taxation. The state can estimate taxes expected from previous years and the amount of land or materials possessed, and the more one pays is the more one is worth. So, don't sit here and act like it is better for having paid less taxes, because most people don't. Acting on this growth and movement, those without books are distributed them as are those without corn, it in an attempt to satisfy as much as legally possible the redistribution of funds where one may prioritize as they see fit. As laws are enacted for the betterment of the whole, those who choose to deviate must be met with a comparable opposing force. Thus, the governor controls those in law enforcement to provide the equal and opposite force to subdue those who may think themselves above the constitution of the state.
How else are we directed to citizens of the state to pay taxes or receive assistance other than some type of visual representation that stands for the body? As a winery bottles and labels its wine, a cowboy brands his cattle, and a corporation registers its trademark, so too does the state have an identifying mark we call the seal of the great state of Tennessee. In this world things have names: American/shoes/potatoes, a label under which those things are called, Tennessean/New Balance/chips, and an artistic representation of the word the thing is called, the Great Seal/New/Lays. When we see a bag of Lay's potato chips, we know what we get, if we were to open a bag. When we want our shoes, we may look for New Balance, and when we see the new, we know what we are getting in them. When we look at ourselves, we initially see Americans, and what kind are we but Tennessean? Pulled by our eyes this way and that by what we see that we want, and wanting what is familiar and convenient more often than not, we are drawn through economics to give to the state from what we have collected for it, and with sociology we attempt to receive what products we have little of. The seal guarantees a certain level of aesthetic professionalism only supported by a nucleus of tax-paying citizens.
The seal is a general representation of the state, whereas the governor's signature is the specific pluribus unum which may represent us all. Sure, we all have fingerprints and retina scans that distinguish one man or woman from another, but they both have to do with the body's physical characteristics. The signature is the mind's representation of what an individual sees mentally and documents physically as himself on paper. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. John 1:1. Without light we wouldn't know our own names in relation to others, and one would call a horse while others would call that same thing a bird. As advanced as we claim to be, we would be nowhere without light, because we couldn't see what was in another's mind. But light comes from within, as in we humans being mortal, we could think the opposite, but man has some part of the divine in him. The signature will remain after the person has left this world. With the conscience of the governor approving bills with his signature, another only needs to concur.
The executive power of any state is in its governor, whose only tools are his opinion, his signature, and the seal of the great state of Tennessee. Seeing the growth of the state and using Newton's laws of motion, the governor collects a percentage of that growth from citizens, directs what is collected toward the public good, and meets opposing forces to the public good with a reciprocal force. Armed with the seal of the great state of Tennessee and signature, the governor is the Pluribus Unum who speaks for the state's best interests and under the auspices of the nation.
That concludes the information for this time. Next Wednesday following our lecture will be a midterm exam where papers are due upon departure.